The new reality at the top of the Dynasty quarterback positional board. Has it changed? Where are the tier breaks and the have and have nots for the position, especially in premium formats? That and more this week on the Footballguys Dynasty Show. And Jordan, is it still Patrick Mahomes and a giant tier break, or is it softer in terms of how things are looking for you, looking out the landscape here?
It's still Mahomes, a tier break. I had Dak Prescott after him. I think I still have Dak Prescott after him. I think that tier might be more crowded. What's going to be really fascinating, I think, over the next 6 to 12 months is we're going to see a big where I thought the top of the quarterback position was actually overpriced last year with some guys that hadn't quite proven it yet. Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, some other guys up there that didn't, Justin Fields, Trey Lance up at the top of the position that were probably too expensive. And now we're getting some reinforcements up there with another season out of Herbert, another season out of Kyler Murray. We're getting some backfill at the position. So now we feel better about that top. At least I do feel better about the top of the position. I still think it's Mahomes and then a gap, but you have a lot of different candidates at the same time as I think you have some receivers coming in, making the position better. It'll make a really interesting dynamic in terms of, I think last year the quarterback position is going to be as expensive as it probably ever was. So it'll be interesting now that we get some additional non-quarterbacks in there with some use, particularly at the receiver position, that you're going to see a blend up there, which I think will be really interesting and allow you to do some different things team building that maybe last year you couldn't do.
Yeah, I think the two critical players that I am sort of having a little trouble of the top 6, 7, 8 quarterbacks that I could see a wide range of what the market thinks. And even depending on the day, depending on the game that we just saw, on how I sort of am thinking about it, the two that are difficult for me, and I actually put them lower just because of my uncertainty level, and it's more than the certainty I have with others, is Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson. And those are the two that I wouldn't be surprised if there are those out there that have them, say, as high as QB2. I tend to have them below Dak Prescott, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, and Russell Wilson. And I know Russell Wilson is probably the one that stands out for people of like, oh, he's got him up there, huh? Yes, I do. And right. Herbert's the one that I had some pause, mainly with his profile. Well, he's not only building on what he did in 2020, he is eclipsing even those standards. We're seeing a little more rushing, which is what I thought could really unlock it. But this past game, like if you want to see, I'm a little on the fence about Justin Herbert. The Browns are a legit good defense, and he torched them. And not only torched them, there were about 5 times going down the stretch of that game that if you want to see what a clutch throw where you got to have it, these were like 3rd and long. He had like 4th and 7s. They were just constantly going for it. He nailed every single throw. He had one drive. I think he had 4 fourth downs or something like that. And it was on Herbert to make the play. And not a play. There was one play to be made. One receiver on one route. And it was an intermediate stick throw. And he made every single one of those. And frankly, I mean, if someone has him QB2, I wouldn't fault you. I don't have him there just because you have Dak, you have Josh Allen. But I think you can't have many above Justin Herbert with what he's done now through a season and a third.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. They're I think the most fun team to watch, right? Like I'm a Bills fan. I watch every Bills game sort of religiously. I think the Chargers are the most fun team to watch just because of the stuff that they do. And like, they're constantly sort of doing what we think is smart too, right? Pushing the envelope in terms of going for it, going on 4th and 9 when that's actually not what the numbers would tell you to do. Like the numbers tell you to punt in that situation, or I think they might've been in field goal range. Like you don't go 4th and 9 where they went, and they did it anyways. Like that, just that level of aggression, even if it's too aggressive, it's really fun. And I mean, and he's paid that off. What's so interesting is like you watch that game, and then I watched the Monday Night Football game, and I've always wondered about Lamar, like back to the wall, like, and we've seen this in the playoffs. Again, maybe it doesn't necessarily matter for dynasty scoring per se, but I think it matters long term in terms of how you think about the position and how confident he feels in some of these guys. Like if you need it, can he get it? Like, and I was listening to some quarterback analysis. And it's like, can your guy get you a bucket on his own, right, without any help? And
He
you
didn't have any
don't
help.
he didn't have any help, and he did it, right? And like it was like you had, there wasn't, you couldn't run play action, right? You had
3
to drop
drives
back
in a
and do
row.
it.
He had to have it with 2-point conversions, and he
And
did
he did
all
it.
3 drives. Yeah.
Right. It's a whole new level. And then you look at, you just flipped it, and Herbert's at that level. Like Russell Wilson's at that level. Like all the other guys that you mentioned are at that level. Josh Allen goes into Kansas City and wins. Like we sort of know what we have up there. And then you look at like the next level, and you're at like Baker Mayfield. And like, do you answer any of those questions on Baker Mayfield as a yes? Because I don't.
Right.
You know,
Joe Burrow,
and
have we answered any of those questions? Right.
no. And so
And the
it's just
rookies, oh my god! Like I mean, I
yeah.
got some stats.
Yeah.
I mean, I put it in New Reality for the Football Guys Dynasty feature piece this week. But if you want a sobering look at, it's 5 games in. I understand that, but man, they've got some work to do. Just looking at rookies, the rookie standard, they are woefully. The whole crop is below it. So be very careful. They need the year 2 jump, and frankly, we need to see more than they've shown so far. But yeah, all those 5 work to do. And I think a lot of people view Mac Jones as a raving success. That's one thing. So, and the fact that I think people view Mac Jones as looking the best so far, like just the optics of it, that may be telling in and of itself. On where we sit.
Right. And how bad are we? Right. This is why you take, right, when you get the opportunity to take one of these guys, you do it. Yeah. Right. Like you take one of when you get a chance to lock down an elite quarterback, you have to do it, because it's so hard to, right. It's not hard to figure those out, right. With multiple seasons of Justin Herbert, like doing what he does, we know that he's good. With multiple seasons of Baker Mayfield, we know that he's probably not at that level, right? He's probably not a difference maker. We know Dak is. All the other guys that we mentioned, right? I usually take 2 seasons to find out. I mean, and listen, that might miss you a season of Kyler having a really good season, but it saves you from a lot of pain too. We're really bad. We're even worse at picking rookies, right? That's why I really hate investing in rookie quarterbacks, because we are horrible at them unless there's a discount. And you look at, I did a series of polls, and I'm not willing to sort of claim this is the winner yet, but Mac Jones was consistently the worst one. Right, he was the worst one by the NFL, and then he's the worst one. I did a series of polls, who's going to turn out best for fantasy, who's going to turn out best in the NFL, and it was Mac Jones not being, everyone else over Mac Jones. And through a few games, like, he's certainly holding his own, if not playing better than the rest of the crew. Like, we're just not very good at deciphering that, because it's really hard to do. And the NFL is not good at it either. So when you get the opportunity to go up and take these guys early, where we kind of know what the answer is, like all the questions that we know the answers to at the top of the position, you kind of have to do it.
Yeah. And looking at your options are either young, because again, if they are young and quote unquote proven, they're super costly, right? I mean, we see when they even put up an okay rookie season, they shoot through the roof. So at that moment, that might be the riskiest thing, right? Because they end up costing you like QB5, but and then you get a rookie that hasn't played at all, and they might be QB10 or 15, somewhere in that zone. But then when you get, I always think the mid-career guys are the best value, because you get some age discount. And sometimes, I mean, Aaron Rodgers, for example, he was falling through the floor last year, and at 36 or so, 35, 36, somewhere in that zone. And that was the 5th round. That was the 5th round super flex year. And so that is another one. The mid 30s, when people assume they're on a 1 to 2 year window, when in fact they may be on a 4 to 5 year window, or who knows how long. So I think the all-timers, or one of the best of our last 10 to 15 years players, those are the ones where when they get to their 30s, every year start poking around at who's cheap, what profiles are cheap. I remember, like, someone, Philip Rivers has a down year at age 34. Boom, discount. He's 3 rounds later this year than he was a year ago. And then this year feels like the Matt Ryan year coming up. It feels like he's going to be the one that falls through the floor. I think we had a year or two ago, it was Kirk Cousins, people clamoring that Kirk Cousins isn't good enough to hold the job. Kellen Mond is going to take his job at some point this year, so how'd that work out? So, I think a few trades and how we've maneuvered our 2 quarterback league is a classic case of all of this profile talk, because you get, so we basically said we'd rather take Deshaun Watson then take Justin Fields. So an
Mm-hmm.
incoming rookie. Now, who again, but it's process over results. So let's see how this works out. Obviously, it doesn't look very good if Watson never plays again. That's part of our calculus is the risk reward of what we think is going to happen. Is Justin Fields good? We may not know for a while if he's good. Certainly, early reports is, things aren't trending the right direction. So that could change in 3 weeks.
But it's a firm and complete.
it hasn't been a rocket ship start, as some quarterbacks have done, not many. So again, we also traded for Matt Ryan. So that's another one of just taking the known versus the unknown of, oh, well, you get a 21-year-old quarterback, and then you have a guy for 15 years, and you have some guy that's a rocket ship, darling for Dynasty. That sounds terrific. But when you're setting lineups and you're saying, do I think they'll be an NFL starter? Like we had Jared Goff, right, in our startup draft, and we've had him ever since. And you can say that that's a massive, that's been ugly. Not really. It actually really hasn't. So, I mean, you got with the Lions. The Lions are horrific around him. He's been okay.
Right.
He's been okay. He's been surviving. And I'm
he's
sure
outplayed Winston and some other guys that went before him. So, I went back and looked at the draft.
He's 26, 27 years old. I'm sure he's going to be around a while, unless he breaks in half. Like, he's going to get plenty of starting opportunities. He's a legit quality NFL quarterback. You might not say he's a top 10 quarterback or top 5 quarterback. That's okay, because you need a lot of guys in 2 quarterbacks. So we've been going with that route of not necessarily having the biggest names. But I think almost basically every week of our team, we've had 2 quarterbacks that we can start, which is a notable thing when we didn't invest super strongly at the outset, or didn't hit on Herbert or any of these Kyler Murray or whatever in terms of the young quarterbacks. But what do you think about so is Jackson proving himself? Like, is he? You didn't mention him in that top subset. Can he do, like, is it just a packed group and those guys are just tough to unseat as anchor points? Is that the biggest thing?
I just think, well, here's the question that I have with him is, I am not sold yet that Baltimore is going to give him a supermax, right? Or what I call the NFL version of that they're going to give him a massive extension.
And here's the franchise keys.
Right. I'm not sure they're going to do that yet. So that's the thing I'm kind of waiting on. And I'm watching his development as a passer. I think if you just, the lens that I am looking at their entire franchise right now is you have to be able to beat people through the air, right? If you, and we talked about this leading up to the draft, right? We talked about it. I remember talking about it with Sig, and I couldn't help but harken back to that this weekend when I said that the only thing, if you're in the AFC right now, your entire approach to football is one of 3 things. It's either putting up as many points as you can possibly put up. It's getting guys that can cover the receivers from Kansas City, or it's putting Patrick Mahomes on his back, right? Those are your only 3 goals, right? It's that's what you have to do to compete.
Tampa was 3 for 3. Good job.
They did a good job.
They did all 3. Yeah,
a good job of that. And so Buffalo's sort of done that. And if you look at what Baltimore has done, it is, hey, we need to know. We are coming up on having to spend $200 million on a quarterback. We kind of have to know if he can go do that, right? We've seen, right now we know Josh Allen can go to Kansas City and win, but we've seen that. We need to see that with someone like Lamar Jackson, not necessarily those circumstances, but that level. He's got to get to that level and in the playoffs, and he just hasn't yet, right? So I look through their entire approach at that's what they're doing. They're bringing Bateman, right? They bring in, people knock Sammy Watkins, but they bring in Sammy Watkins, and I think that's not right. That is a non-zero.
Drafted a ton of top 3 round guys.
Right.
Marquise Brown, Devin Duvernay is finally starting to play a little bit. So they go 3, 4, 5 deep of guys that have pedigree, in addition to bringing in Watkins, as you said.
Right, and keep backfilling it. And it's almost like it's a different level of what Buffalo has done. Like each year, Buffalo has sort of gone back to the well of like, all right, it's John Brown and Cole Beasley, and then it's Diggs, and now it's Emmanuel Sanders. And they just keep going back to the well and sort of adding on top of, not at huge price points, but keep adding on top of the quarterback. And we've seen what that does, right? Josh Allen, as a result, throws to a lot more open guys than he ever did when he was throwing to Zay Jones as a rookie. that's what we sort of need to see, that growth out of Lamar Jackson, because he was sort of dealing with that early on in his career where he didn't have anyone that could separate. Now he's got some guys, and the watching him this weekend is a big, right? That is a big part of answering a question that I have is, can he beat you from the pocket? Because if he can't, then I think we have longevity questions, because I'm not sure the Ravens can spend $200 million on him if he can't do that.
Yeah. And I do, I was looking at regression as part of my article this week, and just a lot of the data points I was putting together, I updated, 3 times during the season, something like that. And Lamar Jackson, he was on that hot list regression from last year. And he's coming in firm, on that. He had an 11% touchdown rate last year. He's down to 7% this year, which is to be expected. He probably drops from 11, historically speaking, probably to about 8, and that's still above average. But yeah, he's dropping down to 7. That's notable. He is still running, and it's also notable his ratios of touchdown and interception rates that I kind of look at. He's right up there in the top 5 of current starters, like Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers, obviously. But he's on a great track. But like you said, the optics of it and actually having it on your shoulders is a new level beyond numbers, beyond anything that's on a chart. Like you said, deserving a supermax, deserving the keys. And when you get paid, those weapons are going to start. I mean, maybe they pay Mark Andrews, they back up the truck, and then, what happens over the next 2-3 years? Players start to go away from you. Like the Chiefs paid 2 cornerstone high-level guys around Mahomes. Well, you see what that could do to the rest of the team. So you have to pick and choose. And that's why Brady taking sub-market was such a boon for the Patriots, because it creates extra players on the team of 53 that you can now surround your quarterback. Your quarterback's going to have to lift up everything, be the tide that rises the boat. So that's really when that occurs. And it's going to happen for Justin Herbert. Things are going to change for him. It may not be instantaneous, but things will change. And the Tom Brady, we're bringing the all-star team back. Like, that is a very rare scenario. And again, let's just stop by that saying it's Tom Brady. So, I mean, that's a one-off scenario we've seen in recent years of salary cap era. Whatever. We're just going to go and repeat this thing if we can. Let's just try that. So I think he's the one that, and Kyler Murray is the other one that I just have. I'm just not there. And by there, I mean the other guys that I listed, that I just have less confidence that he is going to get all the way home of being that guy. And I think they're a really good system. I will remind, Kyler Murray, for his career, his ratio is 0.98, and the average in the NFL is 1.13. So he's firmly below the average, and below 1 is concerning. Like, you would project if it was a different name, you would say, 2 years from now, I'm not sure if they're the starter. Like, that's what 0.98 is. And this year, he's 0.83. That's better than the rookies, but it's not. I'm just telling you, like, Kyler Murray has been an average passer. And right now, everyone, by the sparkles of Rondale Moore, and he's got all these weapons and toys, and the run and tempo, he's running around. I get all that. But let's break it down to what he's actually doing as a quarterback. And it's like middling. So the fantasy and NFL divide, to me, on Kyler Murray, and I think you need to factor in the NFL side. And you're saying that with Lamar Jackson, with Kyler Murray as well. So those are the 2 that I put behind a tier line, behind those other guys, because I just think it's risky at the price point in which we're talking, which is basically round 1, super flex startup draft. And man, that is, you just cannot. You have to take every single risk factor, in my opinion, out of it, even if it means in the highest of high ends of, like, what if this player is totally right? And yeah, those 2 guys could absolutely fantasy wise burn you. Right. They can make you look silly in a best case optimal scenario. I just think there's more downside on all the other guys, maybe even combined, over what happens over the next 5 years. So, and that's just, to me, a matzo ball that you just can't take that on with your first dynasty asset of a new league. All right. Do I remind you, it's the Football Guys Dynasty Show, Chad Parsons, Jordan McNamara, episode 74, and the League Dominator app for Football Guys. It's over there on the Apple and Google Play stores. This is where all the content comes synced with all of your leagues, with your rosters. It's basically right. It's a coach. It's, one of those little advice angels on your shoulder telling you what to do, all the moves to make, how to bid, all of that in your requisite leagues. It's going to help you with your matchups, how to play optimally for the highest score, your win percentage, all of those factors. And again, all of the in-season content you need to manage your teams to your best season yet is over there with the League Dominator app. So let's get to the trades of the week. And these were very thought-provoking. Honestly, probably the best of the past month. And I try to procure the best ones. But let's start with Jamar Chase. I mean, he is on such a track. And I mean, that is a risk-taking maneuver to say, I drafted a rookie wide receiver. He instantly comes in. And one weekend, you're like, well, I'm starting this guy, I guess. I guess he's in my lineup now. I wasn't planning on that, but I am now. He was traded for an interesting package here. So I will ask, did they get enough from basically a guy that's on a Justin Jefferson trajectory 1 year beyond in terms of just instantly coming in and being a cornerstone producer? Ezekiel Elliott, Darrell, Henderson, Laviska, Shenault.
So it's Chase straight up for Zeke, Henderson, and Shenault.
Yes.
Man, I could get to yes if it was something better than like Shenault and Henderson, right? I just don't view them as like difference makers, and so I think you're giving up, especially long term. Like I can sort of see Henderson being productive this year, but I'm a little nervous about that. I think Zeke's just a step down. Just from a market value perspective, I think you got to stay with Chase here. And again, the thing with this deal is it doesn't go away, right? Like you can. I don't think this deal goes away from you if you have Chase, even if he has a couple of bad weeks. I don't think this deal goes away. So I would look to see if I can either make, can I make Shenault better or Henderson better? And plus, you got to remember it depends on the format. But going 3-1, that's not usually a great formula, especially in tighter leagues. Like you don't typically want to do a ton of those deals. So I'd probably hold at this spot, but I like. If it was something a little bit more based around Zeke, I would probably be interested.
Yep. I think you have a golden ticket and you have to be super, super careful. And you have a 26-year-old running back who I love for contending teams. I love him in this shorter perspective. But to think that he's insulated, I think we've already seen some of the shine come off. It's only going to get worse in the offseason. So he is, and he's a guy that I don't think you're going to have liquidity with at all. Not that you have to have liquidity. We talk about that. I mean, you can have a cross-section of your roster that's illiquid to the highest degree, and that's fine. But, yeah, I think Henderson and Shenault, Henderson being closer to a one-year play, and Shenault, we don't really know what we have. Of course, I think it's difficult with Jacksonville to know what we have in general. So who knows how, you get to next year, it's Lawrence, it's Shenault, and what else? Question mark.
It's been a real grind. That offense has been a real grind this year. So that's where we're at with the Jacksonville.
I see what you did there. All right, next one we got a first round pick being traded in a one quarterback league. The projection is later in the round for Kadarius Toney and Alexander Mattison, and that goes to the Dalvin Cook owner.
Oh man, it's Alexander Mattison week, another successful week. So I don't know if I've ever told you this. I'm going to take us totally off the rails. The Mattison week from last year that was really traumatic. I ended up splitting wood in my backyard with my axe, which I named Maddie after Alexander Mattison week. I was worried I was going to have to get her out and swing her around this week.
It's your frustration axe.
It's a frustration axe, man. It's tough.
It's a bad beat axe. Bad beat axe. It's a game script axe.
32 touches again in a non-Dalvin Cook week. Have you by any chance looked at the touch total out of the Minnesota backfield? It's 80 touches for Mattison. It's 61 for Dalvin Cook. It's just incredible that he's actually out touching Dalvin Cook this year.
There's a short list of running backs that have 2 20+ point games. Mattison is one of them this year. 2 in 5 weeks, ladies and gentlemen. And you know what? I've never been tracking injuries closer or active status on Sunday, but I've never felt so good changing out my lineups at 12:45 to Alexander Mattison, universally in.
Right. At home against the Lions, right? We were in the staff chat and we are like, well, we got to move Cook out. I go, we can't move Mattison high enough. I was like,
Yeah.
this is like the dream. Like this is the glorious
Well,
home
one thing
playoff.
I thought about
Yeah.
today that's actually, so even if you're taking a step down with the player from starter to backup, like just in a general NFL sense, here's the interesting thing. So the starter has a quality backup, let's say, behind them, splitting in a backfield. The starter is out. The backup moves up. The new backup could be horrible. The drop from the now starter to third string and now number 2 is like, for example, the Browns backfield. Right now it's about 50-50, give or take. So when one of them is out, the number 3 guy becomes number 2, D'Ernest Johnson. That's a pretty big difference from saying it's Kareem Hunt.
Correct.
So that's why the upside of the backup could technically be at or higher than the level of the current starter. Even if they are a lesser player, the volume, the market share could actually be higher.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, even if you say that, like, hey, Mattison is, even if you have a particularly bullish opinion on Cook, you say, hey, Madison's 80% of what Cook is. Yeah, but he's, instead of seeing 70% of the work that Cook is seeing,
you can see 85
touches
or 90,
80, 85, 90, right? He's going to see more. It's going to sort of make up for it. I mean, you get 2 32 touch games. I mean, if I had told you that in advance, like you probably wouldn't have taken anybody over him if you knew that was what he was going to get. And that's kind of what he's got. So it's really interesting. I mean, here's the issue that I have with this. It's funny because I typically say you don't take a wide receiver with a first if you haven't hit yet, right? Because you wouldn't have taken Toney with a late first this year. Yeah, you shouldn't probably do that after one game. It's sort of my initial thought. Madison's nice. It's interesting. How can you ever, like, are any of these guys either going to go up to get you more than this? Which is an interesting sort of thing. That would be my sort of hang up with this. And again, I would wonder what the roster construction is a little bit more in this format about what they are.
How long would Dalvin Cook have to be out? Like if he was out for the rest of the season?
Yes.
This would be an auto yes. If you were out 6 weeks.
Like we don't expect that. By the way, this is just a hypothetical.
I know. This is just in a vacuum discussion. Yeah,
I didn't want someone to be
where's like, because I do think it's interesting. I do think it's interesting. You have the mid tier of absence. Like I would consider 4 weeks. 4 weeks, 4 games, something like that for Damian Williams. That's sort of the middle ground, right?
Right.
I mean, that's a span of time that's long enough, but yet it's not the end of the season. It wasn't like. McCaffrey, we kind of went in chunks last year. We didn't really have every single time, and then we have Devontae Booker. That might be 1 game, for example, Chuba Hubbard might've been 1 to 2 games or 3 games, somewhere in that span. But then when you get the rest of the season possibility, that opens up, a pretty big window. So that does change the calculus a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think like that 4 to 6 weeks, that's the tough time in terms of how you want to weigh that. Right.
It's not the 4 to 6 weeks like the end of the fantasy season through the playoff sort of stretch, the home stretch. All right, we got one more, and this is the classic contending versus rebuilding teams. So we have a rebuilder, and out of it for this year, sending in Superflex Nick Chubb and Mecole Hardman for Brandon Aiyuk, 23 first and 23 second.
I wonder with this. I mean, I think you have to feel bullish on Aiyuk, because right now I think he's a better player than Hardman is, but right now that's not entirely discernible. And so then you don't want to leave yourself with a spot where you're just trading Chubb for first couple years from now. Right. And the problem I have with these types of trades where you're taking a pick on a core guy 2 years out is you're probably setting yourself to not contend for 2 years, which I hate to do. Right. I've gone through enough, and I'm working on this rebuilding project that I've been writing about. And just the more I look at it, like there's no need to can yourself for 2 years. Right. Just don't there's ways
Just
to sort of
torpedo your team with picks only and a couple
right,
players, but it's like I start 10. Yeah,
right.
it's
You're
really
giving up
dicey to turn yourself into a long rebuild when it could have been a short tweak.
Totally. And a lot of times, like, especially, I don't know what this roster looks like, but if you sort of look at it and you're saying, hey, I got, 4, 5, 6 guys in the top, 60 to 80, right? Almost independent of what's going on. Like you're close enough to contend next year where you shouldn't be sort of tanking out core picks. And that would sort of be my thought on Chubb there. So I think I'd probably do a different deal for Chubb than just basically selling him for a couple years ago. I know that's heresy around some parts, but I don't like to do that. I know everyone loves the 2023 class. I hate that deal because it almost assures me that there's additional stuff going along with it that means you're not going to contend. And I can't condone that sort of thing.
Yeah, and we're talking about one of the best running backs in the NFL. He happens to be 25, 26 years old. So that's not, imagine if someone said this about Derrick Henry before or
Right.
5 games into last season.
Yeah.
What did you give the other team? You gave them a much better chance to do well for now multiple seasons. And it's kind of like the old quarterback theory, right? Every season Chubb posts, it's just going to be gravy for this team. So, yeah. All right, we have a couple questions in the chat before we get to some of the things for the last segment of the show. We got a couple waiver things. So let's view it from a dynasty lens here. So we've got who to pick up from TS, who to pick up on number one waiver claim. There's still leagues that do waiver claims for Myles Gaskin, Devontae Booker, and Darrell Williams.
I could say the answer is not Myles Gaskin. I'm probably taking Darrell Williams, and it's probably for the theory that you said earlier, which is we should coin it the Mattison theory, that when you have a backup come in, they don't see 70%, they see 80 to 85, 90% because they're actually the gap between a good backup and the third guy is a lot bigger than the backup to the first guy. So I would take Darrell Williams out of those guys, and then it would be Booker and then Gaskin.
Yeah, Gaskin, I want no part of that Miami backfield. He had 10 targets and like 30 plus points this past week. Total aberrational. It was the craziest performance maybe I've seen all year in terms of expectations of who knows what's going to happen in that backfield. It happened to turn right for his situation. And then Brandon, we got another one. Who should I pick up between Darrell Williams and Booker? So yeah, that's Williams for both of us. And he should have, to be fair, we've been talking about Williams as one of those guys that make sure this doesn't happen in the future of just him being available. He's not even available in leagues where it's like a 16 player redraft. Like Williams was one of those guys that just the market share, like we just said, is going to be there. All right, a few rapid fire questions from me right at you, Jordan, if you're ready. Here we go.
Okay,
and
let's do it.
Brevity. Will Corey Davis largely be unstartable for the rest of the season?
Will he be unstartable? He will be startable. He's like wide receiver 28. He's doing fine.
Okay, well, he's coming down from where he was to 28. Will Brandon Aiyuk be generally unstartable this year?
Yes.
I can't believe you're more confident on that one. Well, yeah, quarterback situation. From what you've seen,
believe anything that Kyle Shanahan says? You believe a word that comes out of his mouth? If he told you the sun rose in the east,
I don't like that guy.
If I didn't have it on videotape, I couldn't say yes.
I do not like what's happening with the 49ers right now on a variety of fronts. Strangely, I miss Jimmy Garoppolo.
Right. Well, all last week, I know you said brevity, but all last week he was lying about Garoppolo. Like it doesn't stop. I don't believe a word that comes out of his mouth. So I don't trust him at all.
2 of his best offensive players. Yeah, we're not interested. Got it.
Right.
From what you've seen, who will be the best 2021 rookie quarterback?
Trevor Lawrence.
Okay. Who will be the worst or first to lose their job? You can't say Davis Mills. Of the top 5.
He played well this week.
I
know. Justin Fields.
Wow.
Justin
Fields.
Him.
If they go back to Dalton in a week or two, that's not technically him losing his job, in my opinion.
I don't trust
losing it in full form.
Right.
Losing it all the way.
He's going to go through a coaching staff change. He doesn't have any weapons. It's
and this relates to a conversation we had offline today. Why is it better to trade another team's future first instead of your own?
Oh man, we could do 20 minutes. I I said something to you, which I think it's the best thing is I don't want to have to look in the mirror and thinking I was arrogant enough to trade my own future picker away and have it be really good and not be able to use it because I suffered through a year of injuries and incompetence or whatever.
Or both.
And then suffer through it.
Injuries.
Right. Yeah. I think it's the most arrogant thing you can do in Dynasty is to trade away your own future first when you could trade away somebody else's. Even though like I feel like if you said, hey, who do you want to bet on? I'd probably bet on us, but it's the downside of that. It's a lot worse. So that would sort of be my thought on it. That's the short and sweet version of it.
Okay. And I found a couple bad beats for the week. I have my own. I lost by 0.26. That one hurt. But I also wasn't. And here's the bad thing. A lot of times I track the box score on Monday night. And so I knew I was getting close in this one league that I care about. And Jonathan Taylor starts balling out. And so I knew I lost by fractions when I go to watch the game today on condensed. And so now I'm watching the game from this prism of where's that 0.26? Where is it? He had a reception called back by penalty. He also had one that was a drop. And I was like, that's it. That's the window right there. And either one of those. Now, again, he put up 30 plus. So should I have been close in most iterations? No. But that one was a tough one to swallow. Here's a story. And again, you have this Monday night game. I mean, people that were going against Andrews or Lamar Jackson or Marquise Brown or any number of guys, Taylor, that things shifted. This is a Monday night shifter, if we call it. All right. Didn't happen to me, but here's a game in my league where one team had a 214-94 lead going into Monday Night Football, and the average team scores about 157. So they already put up 214, 120 lead or so.
Lamar Jackson, Andrews.
The other team had four players left.
Jonathan Taylor. Oh God, here it comes.
But normally, quote unquote, it's over. The other four teams had Lamar Jackson, Jonathan Taylor, Marquise Brown, and Justin Tucker. The other team won going away 235 to 214. Wasn't even, and they said never seen anything like it. This is why on Monday, until my fantasy playoffs, and really not till the semis, I do not check my matchups at all, really, because I can't do this. How do people do this in September, October of you're watching Monday Night Football and you're up by 120 and you're just seeing it leak like an old jalopy down the road? You're like, this is not making it to the garage. This Lamar Jackson just goes off. I will say the Colts are the worst defense for 2021 NFL. They are classic bend but don't break. And you're just going to get carved. They can't get home. They can't create big plays. And the whole league is based around big plays now.
Yeah. Yeah.
They played those drives like, oh, yeah, we'll just let them into the red zone, but then we'll stop them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And also, I needed one Colts possession in overtime. Right. All they had to do was not give up a touchdown or win the toss. And I probably get 3 yards out of Jonathan Taylor. Yeah. All right. Do you have any bad beats? Do you have any anything to contribute here?
We started in a league where we got Mattison in our lineup, but we had to pick between McLaurin and Gibson, and we chose wrong. And I actually don't care about lineup decisions. I don't care about that one, but that's the one that sticks in my mind this week. I did escape. I escaped. I had someone was charging, and I think it was Lamar Jackson, Kelsey, and somebody else, and it was a subscriber, and I had a 77-point lead on them, I believe, and they hunted me. They almost hunted me down, and I was able to just barely escape. And I said before the game, I was like, I think I would take the other side.
Underdog. I'm an underdog.
They had it wasn't it was Lamar Jackson. It wasn't Kelsey. It was Lamar Jackson and somebody else. I forget who it was. It wasn't Kelsey. It was somebody else. But yeah, it was very much closer than it should have been. So, I felt like the hunted, like the stalked.
Do you think it was? Because I remember, and again, it's a first world problem on our specific. Is there any takeaway, or is it just that's the way the ball bounces sometimes on the Gibson versus McLaurin? McLaurin's high enough in the. You don't necessarily start every starting running back over him type feel that you may have.
I probably should have checked start rates, and I would have, if they were close, I would have pitched you on it. And
They weren't overly
I was,
close. Gibson was 10-15% lower, if memory serves.
oh, okay. All right.
It was
Okay. Well,
90s versus like 80 or 78 or yeah. Gibson was, I mean, again, he had the shin thing. We didn't really know his status till later in the week. And
yeah.
to be fair, watching that game, he got a little lucky. Like he got two shorter range touchdowns in a game where they trailed and still didn't get the receiving work. So to me, the process
like 20
was
for
pretty,
60, right? Like he didn't have
it was
good,
it was relatively ugly. It
Right.
was touchdown or bust, and he ended up getting 2 touchdowns. So
right.
Again, I don't, and I think he's going to drag a lot of people into a start this week, and it may not be prudent in terms of the process, in my opinion.
Have you ever watched Red Zone? I know you don't watch games live usually. Have you ever watched Red Zone?
The actual channel, you mean?
Yeah. Have you ever?
I've seen it before. I haven't watched it in years.
Okay, because
there's two versions, right? There's two different versions, right?
I don't know. Is there? I think there's just the. Okay. I only know of the one that's the NFL's official one or whatever.
Okay.
But I got it just because I was like I wanted to catch some out of market games, and I was like, I'll just try. I had never gotten it. I'd watched maybe like 5 minutes of it at like a bar at one time, and my God, like it's the most stressful experience because you're just bouncing around. It's you're bouncing around like you were talking about. You're trying to hunt scores, and it's like. I'm like, I don't know if I like this, man.
Do you normally watch something on Sunday? Are you normally a watcher of something?
Honestly, it's honestly the perfect thing for me because I'm not usually a watcher, but it's like enough entertainment where if I can throw it on in the background, I'm not catching commercials. I'm not catching, reviews.
I really didn't like it because they hold like they'll show you a cut in or something that just happened, but it's all like they'll show certain games more than others, and then some games you don't see at all. And it's like, well, they got in the red zone, like what's so. I personally didn't like it. I used to watch when I first started, I would watch the 8 screens. Like I had the 8 screens, and I would just go around and change the audio. But it was like, I mean, it was a drug. Like I got used to and that's really where I started like this one game over 3 hour thing. Like, no, I can't. I'm not ADD or have any sort of issues. But yet when you start watching 8 games or even 4, where you're not used to commercials, you're watching, oh, that play just ended. Oh, what's going on over here? Shiny objects. Like that really was a game changer back. What was that? 10 years ago ish, maybe even more. So, but now I sort of like the, no spoilers and watch it after the fact. And the weird thing is when you watch an actual broadcast of just like the pacing of it, it's like, oh, every 30 seconds something happens. And then, the announcers talk. Like I don't get a lot of when people have firm opinions on announcers, it's like, I don't get a lot of announcers. Like it's pretty much the play-by-play guy that calls the play and that's it. That's most of what I hear. All right. Do want to remind you, it's mid-season, but if you're not subscribed over at footballguys.com, again, all that content, you've got the League Dominator, which is the online version, is available through your membership. Again, all the articles that we talk about, I can't highlight enough Gene Bramwell's content. That he does 3-4 pieces a week. He is our injury resource and guru. Great job. I mean, you get a setup on Monday. Exactly. And it goes all the way through to game day. Like he has updates the morning of, and we're talking about it as a staff, but it goes out in megaphone fashion onto the site with his Sunday game day feature. And you just get updates. It's Monday, Wednesday, it's end of the week. It's also Sunday. And that's really what you need for those final pickups and your confidence level, setting your lineups and just having that clarity. I swear almost every week there's some Friday, Saturday into Sunday pickup that I make across 25% or more of my leagues that I'm like, this increases my probabilities. And a lot of that is based on injuries and having, you don't have to hunt and peck down every injury report on every team. He distills it into what you need to know, which again, if you can sift through his article in 5 minutes, go action plan in your league. That's what you need. So I can't recommend it enough over at footballguys.com.
Sounds like you need to send over a check to the Bramwell household.
Exactly. Like. Oh, I'm a little cookie box coming up for the holiday season here.
I'll tell you too. The best one of my favorite Dr. Gene things is it's his injury rounds from week 5, for example. They come out Sunday night. So during Sunday night football, I'm sitting there patiently awaiting the message in our group chat saying injury rounds are live because I'm in there and I'm one of the first readers of it every week because it's that significant, that important to me. So that's of all the great things, like that's probably the best, if not one of the absolute best things that we do at Football Guys. Dr. Gene's injury stuff.
Well said. In this episode, again, we discussed a lot about the quarterbacks and profiles, especially at the top of the board in the top 6 to 8 of the position. We talked about future picks, guys like Nick Chubb in the trade market, impact of Alexander Mattison, Jamar Chase, his value, how to handle him in the Dynasty trade market, and some rapid fire, some bad beats, as well as how you should view your own first round pick versus others. I am Chad Parsons. He's Jordan McNamara. And until next time, good luck in your Dynasty leagues.